Welcome to RX Insider, the podcast where I talk to athletes from the functional fitness and CrossFit scene across Europe and beyond. We talk about competition, training, and what really happens behind the scenes. You will hear insights, news, and perspectives that usually stay off the record. I'm your host, Luka. Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the RX Insider podcast. Today, I have a special guest from currently Zurich, Switzerland, I guess.
Correct.
And his name is, I hope I pronounce it right, Gommaar the Hulst?
Yes.
Is that right?
All good. Doesn't matter.
How do you do it?
It's all perfect. There's no English translation, but Gommaar Dulst. So the D apostrophe H is one go.
Dulst.
But it's hard. It doesn't matter. Gommaar Dulst. Yeah.
Okay. Is it Belgium? From Belgium?
Belgian. Yeah.
Okay.
Belgian.
Because I checked your CrossFit leaderboard and I saw that you did the CrossFit leaderboard in
Yeah.
Belgium sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am Belgian.
Okay. Gommaar has a channel, I think, together with another guy. As far as I can read from the Instagram bio, and what they do is they kind of like deep dive into topics, especially like CrossFit, hybrid, but I also saw high rocks. They also go into nutrition, all with like a big light from a scientific perspective. So we kind of, I hope you don't get this wrong, we kind of like have the Sheldon Cooper of CrossFit here, sitting here, who's like, but not a physicist. I think your bio says you're a biologist and you have a PhD. I wrote down it's in amino acid and oxygen sensing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I can talk about that. But that's basically the major topic. Yep.
Okay. Because when it comes to sport and CrossFit and everything, I think those two topics are kind of important. So, yeah, before we dive into the questions that I've prepared, as always, I have my touch and go question round. Are you ready?
I'm super ready.
Okay, because everyone, he's also a big CrossFit fan. I think you have to be if you go this scientific deeply into those topics. So let's do it. First question. Thruster or burpees?
Thruster.
Okay. Next one. 60-minute assault bike or making your taxes?
I've never done my taxes myself, so certainly 60-minute assault bike.
Okay.
Zone 2, Zone 2.
Yeah.
We didn't tell the intensity.
True. I have to add this to the question next time. Next question. Do you prefer like regular whey protein or some IsoClear stuff?
You mean, I never take whey protein.
Or you never? Oh,
so I would say whey. I mean, from a scientific point of view, definitely whey protein. Myself, I don't take whey shake, so none of those.
Okay, interesting. We can go into that later as well. Next question: 5 rounds for time or 20-minute AMRAP?
Yeah, that's easy. That's 5 rounds for time.
Okay.
I mean, does anyone say 20-minute AMRAP?
There are some.
That's crazy.
But like the minority. Yeah?
Those are psychopaths.
Yeah, 100%. Next one, sprint or chipper?
Yeah, sprint. That's very easy.
Okay. Do you prefer to train in the morning or late at night or evenings?
Late at night, that's when the kids are in bed, and I'm tired, but mentally tired, not physically. So I would say evening. Yeah.
Okay. Do you prefer barbells or dumbbells?
Barbells.
Okay. Cheat meal. Do you prefer pizza or burger?
Burger.
Okay. Prefer 2 hours of zone 2 or 1 hour of mobility?
Zone 2. Oh
Okay.
man. Everyone who knows me knows that answer. For sure, zone 2.
Like everyone's zone 2 kind of like. Except for older athletes, they prefer mobility because they die if they don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Weightlifting or gymnastics?
Weightlifting.
Okay. Dogs or cats?
Yeah, not really cats. I have a cat, but I'm not that much into those. But cats, yeah.
Okay. And last question: Fraser or Froning?
Yeah, Froning.
Rich Froning. Why Froning?
Yeah, that was fast. I mean, I've been to Mayhem, the gym. Now we can talk about that later. Yeah, Froning. He has the aura. He's Mr. CrossFit, and when I started 14 years ago, obviously he was in his prime, or just a little bit after he was in his prime, and yeah, it's like the Tiger Woods of Froning.
Okay, yeah, he definitely is the GOAT. Like, and he lives it. Like, that's great.
Yeah, he lives it. Yeah,
So you said you're just like 14, 15 years you're doing CrossFit now?
yeah, very long, very long. Yeah, I started CrossFit when the third gym in Belgium opened. CrossFit Leuven. Leuven is a city, a university city in the middle of Belgium, and I started there. Coming from let's say, so I did university, I did sports sciences, and I learned the typical basic movements, the Globo gym stuff. And then I got thrown into a CrossFit gym, and everything was flipped on reverse. I saw paleo, I saw no carbs, I saw Mr. Pukey, I saw doing 100 reps, wall balls for time, things that you obviously don't learn in normal, let's say, sports sciences. And that intrigued me. And I got also very fit and very muscular by doing this. I was like, okay, this stuff works. And um, I didn't really like too much of the controversy also related to science. Also, we can talk about that. But I did like the fact that it was a little bit rogue, a little bit different than usual. It was very hard, obviously. And yeah, it just attracted me. And then it definitely also started to attract me from a scientific point of view. Why do athletes get so strong? Why can they develop both endurance capacity and strength at the same time? They're really big, but they can still run and bike and so on. So this is very intriguing from a purely scientific point of view, and that's how the sport still intrigues me, I would say. Yeah.
Mm. It's also super interesting. Like at the time when you started CrossFit, were you already like in university or already done, or like?
I was starting my PhD. Was the second year or so PhD. So I started my PhD. Man, that's in 2010. Started my PhD. It's a 5.5 years PhD, and then 2012. Maybe I was in the third year of PhD, something like that. Yeah, okay. 2013. I think I started 12. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Did you like when you did your PhD, like at the end you have to write it like a big, that's the doctor's how do you say work,
like a thesis.
Yeah, a thesis. Was it about like CrossFit or some
no, nothing about CrossFit. Right. I did very basic biology. I was in an exercise physiology lab, so we were in a lab that was let's say the most renowned in Belgium, where they did a lot of endurance exercise. So my professor, my PI, my mentor, he was also an advisor to the Omega Pharma Quickstep team. So the Belgians, they know two things. They know four things. They know chocolate, they know beer, they know football, and they know cycling. Right, cycling is very, very big. And there was a cycling team that came always into the basements, into our lab, to do VO2 max testing and lactate testing. But there was nothing about strength, or basically nothing, and also very little, certainly nothing about CrossFit or functional sports. That was not a thing, also not in literature and in research then. So I did more about muscle size, strength training, how high altitude, so low oxygen environments affect muscle mass, how that affected oxygen sensing and amino acids metabolism. So I was a little bit like the rogue of the whole lab, because I was interested in not pure endurance, but also some strength work. So that's how it all went, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, that's super interesting, I think. So I can already sense, you hear the wordplay, I can already sense that you're pretty passionate about that, like the whole thing. So let me start with one question that I wrote down, and I thought like this is a good one to start with. So on a personal level, like what was one of the most fascinating or surprising results that kind of like changed the way you train, or you view how the human body in this training realm kind of like works? What would you say?
So one of the things we did with WOD science, or one of the things that is actually quite interesting, and there is a lot of interest from researchers, and that's important, is this interference effect. And that means that if you do strength training, typical literature is you do whatever, leg extension, squats, leg press, and then straight after you do cycling or running, like straight after. Okay, so you do 30 minutes, let's say, of strength, and then 30 minutes, whatever, conditioning, zone 2, or even higher intensity. Then we know that there's an interference in the signaling, or potentially in the interference in the signaling between the enzymes that relate to muscle growth, and then they get kind of blunted by doing straight afterwards endurance exercise, because as you all know, a marathoner looks completely different than a power lifter, and that is adaptations of the muscle. So if you would do them both in close proximity, you probably have some kind of a blunting effect, certainly when you are a good or a top-end athlete. Not if you're a beginner, it doesn't matter, but certainly when you are getting towards a high level, doing large amounts or decent amounts of, let's say, cardio when you want to grow muscle is likely somewhat negative on the muscle building side, all right? And that is, again, coming from more traditional sports like pure global gym as well as endurance sports. And obviously my little CrossFit hat came there and said, like, we are doing this all the time. Like, if I go to the gym, certainly in the beginning, that was quite interesting, maybe some background. My gym at CrossFit Leuven, this guy, he came from the powerlifting world. He was like a full-on powerlifter. And then he came into the CrossFit like really early, 2012 or something. And he said, guys, the only thing that is really important in CrossFit is strength. Like, you do power, you do back squats, all that stuff. And then the workout, that's like playing. That's not so important. He always said that, right? So we did large amounts of weightlifting and actual gaining muscle, and then a little workout like Fran or 5-minute workout. That was actually very complementary because it was high intensity. And yeah, so whatever. And then I moved towards Zurich, and there we did more, how you see it now, 30 minutes of strength, like back squat, and then a 20-minute AMRAP or something. So more like separated. I was thinking, like, why are we doing this? Like, it doesn't really make that much sense because you are always interfering. So what did we do with maybe people who are listening to this have seen it? 2 years ago and also 1 year ago, we started the hybrid projects. And basically what that is, we ask our community to online, so remote, you do 1 week of pure metcons and skill work, like high heart rate, only that, right? And the next week you do only strength work. So CrossFit style, but you do only strength work, you see? And then you keep doing that for 9 weeks, 10 weeks. And the other group does the same training, that's important, exactly the same training, but they do it within the same day, like a typical CrossFit session would be. The strength part would be first, and then the endurance part or metcon part would be second. And we call this hybrid training, whatever you want to call it. It's maybe not the perfect name, but we call this interference hybrid 1.0 and 2.0. And we saw in general that both groups improved. So the CrossFit methodology or whatever methodology works really well, strength and CrossFit style workouts. We did a lot of test batteries. But in general, if you take all the data together, certainly there is some edge for doing this hybrid style of training, where you do, let's say, 1 day of strength, and then the next day you do more an endurance type metcon skill work. And I mean, that's how we see it. So that's something that really interests me, because if you go back to the CrossFit methodology, how Glassman wrote it, he actually stated this. He said you need to have heavy days. He meant probably mostly strength. And then you need light days, or you need also metcon days. He doesn't really say really in the beginning of the CrossFit journal, you can look it up, that you have to do like your typical affiliate, first back squats and then whatever Fran or another CrossFit workout. He doesn't say this. This kind of integrated more and more because people like it. They like to feel exhausted. And obviously the gym owners do basically what their members tell them to do, right, after some time. So yeah, that's something I learned, long-winded answer, but that's something I learned, that if you want to get to, let's say, a very high level and you want to build certain parts of your fitness, it's better to focus on that part. Let's say 1 day you want to get stronger, do 3 days out of 7 pure strength. Don't do a metcon, and maybe do the metcon or the zone 2 session somewhere separated, maybe 6 hours later if you have a lot of time, or you do the next day. And that's also how we build our training plans, and with really good results, and certainly good for people who train, let's say, alone or with a couple of friends. If you do it in an affiliate, it's maybe a bit more difficult because people like, as I said, the split routine. But if you're alone, it's probably a really good way to hit those plateaus, or to break through those plateaus sometimes what you have certainly in CrossFit. So yeah, that's one of the things that I learned, and also from from my own experience with actually doing the studies and collecting the data, which I think is important.
Just a quick break, guys. Here's Luka. I just want to let you know, if you like the podcast, please leave a follow. And now enjoy the rest.
Okay, I have a couple of points listening to you talking about that. So first of all, I want to paraphrase. So just try not to do strength and conditioning at the same kind of like time block. Give it some time in between, because you will benefit. Or that's what you found doing your research and your tests and everything.
And this was in decently well-trained athletes.
And you will benefit in both strength and also conditioning.
Yes.
More than the compared group too.
Yeah, slightly. So some tests, not all tests, like as I said, like both groups improved one group 7% and the hybrid group around 10% in all tests. But yeah, sometimes there's some tests that didn't give anything. And this is again mostly in experienced athletes, because people who follow our page and also want to do those studies have 5, 6, 7 years of experience. They know how to do CrossFit, right? If you are a beginner and you really step into a CrossFit gym, it probably doesn't matter. Just jump in, do the skills, learn the skills, get stronger.
Well, how do you differentiate? Sorry to interrupt, but how do you differentiate? Like, I mean, a beginner is kind of like on a scale, right? It's not 0 or 1. So what is a beginner? So when should you really think about being this specific about your training?
I think if you can master 95% of the skills in CrossFit, if you can do most of gymnastics movement, if you can master the squat snatch, those very technical movements, that probably means that you have done already some work, because CrossFit is a very technical sport, like super technical. I think there you can think about, okay, if I want to keep improving my 1RM snatch, which is, by the way, very important in CrossFit, yeah, it's probably better to maybe focus a full hour on weightlifting, doing some back squats afterwards, than always doing this Metcon 12 minutes of jumps and whatever. You see, if you don't have all those skills, potentially it's less important. It depends also, not only beginner, but also what you want to achieve. If you just want to have fun and get fitter, likely doesn't matter too much. But if you want to take it maybe a little bit to the next level, for sure, like many of your audience or people listen, then I do think it might have a long-term impact. Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool. And staying here, like, first of all, how much time do you think is at a minimum necessary so that you have those effects? And is it important what you do first? Like, if you do 2 sessions a day, is it important to do strength in the morning and then later at night Metcon, or it doesn't? Do you have any reference or experience on that?
Yeah, there's a good study done in rugby players. So rugby is a little bit similar as CrossFit. It's high intermittent sport, heavy athletes, muscular athletes. And what did they do? Very eloquent study in France with the rugby 7 guys there. So it's a big sport in France. They did 4 groups, right? One group did no training. One group did strength only training. Okay, so only strength. So they did half squats and bench press, what rugby players always do, right? And then there was another group that did 5 groups, sorry. And there was another group that did the strength part, and then straight after, like 0 time in between, they did intermittent sprints and cardio on the field, right? And then a 4th group did the same strength, but then they waited 6 hours to do the cardio. 6 hours between the strength and the cardio. And then the 5th group did again the same strength, but then the cardio was 24 hours after the strength. Okay. And then they looked at, improvement in cardiovascular capacity, like VO2 max, as well as strength. And they saw, specifically in strength, that the gains were the most if people rested or waited 6 hours with their cardiovascular training. So I would say, to answer your question, based on that study and also based on our studies, that likely 6 hours is enough, and the order likely doesn't matter too much, because you have to think this. If you do, for example, you go out and you do a 10-kilometer run, all right, then your body adapts to that run. There's enzymes in your muscles, even in your heart, that signal, okay, he has been running, we have to adapt to the new stimulus, and there's more mitochondria, more blood vessels, and so on. And that goes up, like this gene expression goes up the first 2-3 hours, and then it kind of already starts to go down. And one of the ideas is that if you do strength training right after, there might be some interference. It's not really shown in humans, but it has been shown in mice and in rodents. So it's really not that easy to find, but there's some idea that this could happen. So if you wait 6 hours, usually the body has been initiating those adaptations, and then you can go back doing your strength work or the other modality. So 6 hours is, I would say, enough for elite athletes, and 24 hours if you have if you program your training well, you can just come back the next day, right? I mean, you don't have to train twice a day. You can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, speaking of like very high level athletes, those athletes that's spending like 3 to 6 hours a day in the gyms, like they would probably benefit from what you just taught about. These interference. It's super interesting how different the body can actually react to different stimuli that we give them.
And I'm telling you this, but it doesn't mean that all the top athletes are doing this. All right, I was in Mayhem in June last year, and you saw interference training all the time, like best athletes in the world doing a Metcon straight after strength and so on. They were training all day, high intensity all the time. This is kind of theoretical, right? Like we found it in our study. We did a study. Like we have 50 athletes of decent caliber, but the actual top athletes, not everyone trains like that. There's some ideas certainly in the Hyrox world. They adapt this a bit more, but CrossFit is still old school. There's less scientific integration, maybe knowledge, but not so. Yeah, it depends. Like it depends on what the athlete wants. It's not that straightforward, I would say. But if you can, I guess
that because there is a certain status quo that we have, it's hard to implement a new idea. Even though the idea might be better, you kind of need proof.
That's exactly true.
You need kind of proof so that the other elite athletes go like, I might want to try that, So I guess it's hard to massage a new idea into an existing system, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I think so too.
But I also saw that, like, speaking of like having an example, for example, I read on your channel, I'm not sure if you're still doing it, that you have one athlete that you want to kind of like take and like track everything for, or like work with him very close. The goal is to bring this athlete to the games within 3 years, or to make him at least games ready. Are you still doing that? And how is that going? Because that would be kind of like you would kind of like test it on a real person. So, which I found is pretty cool, actually.
It's funny that you asked this. So we're really in the works of getting sponsors on board. So yes, this is still ongoing, and yes, we still want to do it. And he's a high RX athlete, so he's not a games athlete now. That's very important. I mean, we want to take someone who's actually trainable. And yes, so it's still ongoing. We are planning to have a long-term follow-up study and actually publish this in a scientific journal, meaning that you follow up one athlete as a case study, and we try to monitor his training load, his recovery throughout the years, literally like 2 to 3 years, and then see how far he gets. Like it's really a journey. Obviously, getting to the games will be very, very hard, but still doesn't mean that we can see his progression. It's not that straightforward. Like we're living in Switzerland, we need definitely some sponsors to do this. WOD Science can support it, but not fully, not his full lifestyle. So that's the major problem, obviously, at this point. But we are pretty far in collecting some sponsors, and I'm very excited to start this. And this guy is also very excited, so he really wants to do it. So let's see.
So I really like the idea to have like a scientific example of how far you can come as an athlete, know? I think that's pretty cool, actually, what you're trying to do.
Because he's really like a normal human being, right? Like he's strong, he's good, but he's not like the Roman Krenikov of all those crazy specimens. He's just a good athlete, but not crazy. And we want to see how far he can get.
Yeah. They're already like in the classic bodybuilding fitness scene. There are already a couple of like science guys who already make a lot of content around that. So I guess what you're doing is like niched down onto this hybrid kind of like atmosphere.
Exactly.
Okay, pretty cool. So in case anyone who's listening and thinks what you guys do is a great idea, and you're an investor, by the way, just shoot them a message. They might be happy if you had got some money for them to give them to make this project actually happen. So
yeah, because I mean, it's also leveraging the WOD Science community, right? Like we will do podcasts, we will do YouTube videos about this, and then we will obviously also mention the brand in that case that supports. So I think it's a cool thing to support. And yeah, but yeah.
Have you tried to reach out to Greg Glassman to see if his concept is even scientifically proven? Kind of like,
I mean, it is scientifically proven. There's a lot of data showing
Sure.
that CrossFit is improving health and so on. So and he obviously comes from the way of CrossFit is a method of getting people healthy off the couch, right? It was not necessarily his goal to make a sport out of this. I think this is a long discussion.
yeah.
So, but yeah, in any case, it is a cool sport. So
Yeah, 100%. So if anyone listening to this and you want to support him, just reach out to Gommaar. I like the idea. And also actually wrote down a question that was kind of like, if you had like 2 million and you could use probably like 20,000 super good athletes, like what would you actually test? Like what was the one thing that would go like, okay, I want to do this, if you had unlimited resources and athletes and money? Is it that project, or would you also do something else?
yeah, I'm obviously biased because I'm going to mention the project that I'm working on, right?
Okay, let's put this one aside because this is pretty cool already. But is there another one that kind of like?
Yeah. What we want to do. So as I said, like I'm interested in the blend between functional fitness and traditional sports. And one of the things we know from traditional sports is, if you have a young athlete, he comes to the lab and he's a cyclist, right? And you measure his VO2 max, his maximal oxygen uptake, and how far he can get in a ramp test to exhaustion, we call that. So it means you start at low intensity, go up until you cannot make it. And there's a very good correlation to talent detection and also just overall fitness. I mean, it's the most used fitness parameter in research. But you cannot really do that in functional fitness. Yes, you can design such a test. You can do, for example, X amount of burpees, X amount of thrusters, and some rowing. You always increase the reps and the weight, and then the athlete will also get exhausted, like a dead by burpee or a dead by, maybe if you've done those workouts. It's similar, but still, you don't really know at that point that much. You need power measurements, and power is the end boss, basically, right? Like that is the amount of work you're doing per time frame. And if I am doing 10 thrusters and you are doing 10 thrusters with the same weight, we will have different power. Even though we do the same amount of reps, our power will be different because maybe you are a little bit taller or shorter than me. The bar has to move less or less far and cover less distance. All right, and so it's not very useful to have a fixed amount of reps and doing then increasing those reps, because it can be that the athlete who is way taller is doing or producing way more power in the beginning than some small person who's doing the same amount of reps. You see what I mean? So you cannot really design that well those kind of tests. I mean, yeah,
What
it doesn't.
about a cyclist? Like there are also taller and smaller cyclists, probably.
Yes, but the power is the same. So you fix the power. So you start at 100 watts. That is the amount of like literal power you produce with the cranks.
Okay,
and that is fixed. Like that. If you're tall or not, okay, maybe it is. You have more leverage, and it will be, let's say, metabolically easier to produce that power. But that's fine. Like the power is still the power. That's the correct measurement. And with as I said, like with reps, you cannot really do it because. Let's say, right, like you, we do 100 thrusters for a time, you against me, and you do them in 1 minute faster. It takes for me, whatever, 8 minutes, and for you, it takes 7 minutes. In CrossFit, we say you are fitter because you were faster. But if I can measure your mechanical power, and it might show, because you're way shorter than me, that you actually produce less power than me. Okay, because you have to cover less distance with the thruster. You see what I mean? And therefore, from a scientific point of view, I wouldn't necessarily say you're fitter than me because I can maybe produce more power. So it's really like a semantic discussion. And now we have the capacity to go back to your question. I'm collaborating to make devices and to make sensors that can assess that power using functional movements. Okay, so we can actually transpose a bike test towards a burpee test or a thruster test or a pull-up test. And then we can use that data not only to do testing, as I just explained, but we can also say, maybe you've heard about threshold, like lactate threshold. We can say, okay, your lactate threshold is at 320 watts, just an arbitrary number. Okay, let's say you want to, like all the endurance athletes do, I want to do threshold training. Okay, this means that for a certain amount of time, you do intervals of 5 minutes or 10 minutes at threshold, 2-minute rest. With the knowledge we have in CrossFit or in Hyrox, we cannot really do it using functional movement because we don't have power. Okay, so using that metrics, we can transpose or we can take your individual watts and say, okay, if you do, I'm talking about EMOM, for example, 30-minute EMOM. If you do 15 wall balls, 13 pull-ups, and 20 lunges at that weight, you individually, that would equate to your specific threshold power. So you can do threshold training and actually have way better improvement in your training compared to just doing whatever workouts, AMRAPs, or just always going all out or having no idea about the intensity. Okay, so that's a project we're working on, and that is also something that I want to educate trainers to be able to do that to their athletes. You see, so that they can actually use some of those scientific findings and implement that into functional fitness. I think it's highly important to not just always randomly do workouts, but actually have some idea not only about the modality, but also about the intensity and the effect on the body. So we hopefully don't need 2 million francs for that, but at least that is something that intrigues me because it blends the physiology and also the biomechanics, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. Let me just get this clear. Like, if you define power, what's that? That's weight times what variable?
Yeah, load divided by seconds. The amount
of time,
work,
load, and distance.
Yeah, yes. So the work you're doing over a certain amount of time. Okay. That's the physics of power. And obviously, if you want to go faster on a bike, you need to produce more work in a shorter amount of time. So that's why you produce more power and go faster uphill or whatever.
Okay, if you look at
the same with thrusters.
If you look at because I think everyone understands, okay, if I know my bike WOD is like, I do a 20-minute WOD test, for example, and I know, okay, these are kind of like my numbers. I understand how can I get faster on a bike. But when we come to doing a burpee, it's like, and you said like there's so many different variables, like you have longer legs, shorter legs, bigger legs, whatever. How, like this project you were talking about, like how do you measure that? Do you go like, okay, your tibia is like this length and this, and then you have like a table, and it's like, or how does it work? It's interesting.
So
or is it
we have this thing. It's a IMU. It's a very simple. You can look it up. It's it measures acceleration and movement through time. All right, and you place it with a strap on the chest. Okay. And using modeling, AI modeling, we can transpose the data we got from a lab. So if you do a burpee on a force plate with motion capture cameras in a lab, you do 10 burpees, we can assess your actual power, okay, mechanical power. That is done in the lab, also pull-ups and so on. But that's very nice for you. But I mean, no one does burpees on a force plate and in the lab. You do it in the gym. So we then use we transpose using AI models that knowledge towards, okay, if you move in this way with that acceleration through time and space, you must be doing a burpee. So we can detect the movement automatically, because obviously the burpee is through the different axes, it's going to move in a certain way. You can recognize this in data, all right? And then we can also transpose that using or finding a mechanical power. That's like the next step. You see, so we can automatically detect all the movements, thrusters, burpees, all the big movements in CrossFit and also high rocks. And then because we can validate that compared to different models we used in the biomechanics lab, we can also assess power using functional movement. And there, because, for example, I am taller than you, my range of motion is going to be bigger using in the burpee, and this will automatically be detected. So my power will be higher if I do the same amount of reps than you. All right. So yeah, that's basically how it is, and that's that's the in a nutshell what it measures.
Okay, first of all, that's pretty cool, I think. Second, so it will kind of be like this. You feed it some information, like you feed your height, your weight maybe, and stuff like that, and then and then you put it on like the classical polar
heart rate,
wear, whatever, and then the movement has kind of like a pattern, and AI is able to recognize that pattern. It goes like, okay, he did 100 burpees 4 times. And this is because he has this size and this body weight. And then some calculations happen in the background. And final is like, that was 250 watts, whatever.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Correct.
That's insane. And how, like when you measure it in the lab, like you told me, you have this plate and then you have cameras and like all of this scientific things. Like how much is the deviation, or how accurate?
Very, very little. Very, very close to the same. We're talking about 99% similar. So and also the measurement, so the detection of the movement and the movement speed, so that's the second arm, is 100%, meaning you do Fran. Let's say you do Fran, 2159 pull-ups and thrusters. And we can, so you click on the app start, you do Fran, you just start Fran, you don't click any button, you just do Fran. Then when you're done, when you're lying on the floor screaming for help, you click on, or you tap stop, and then it automatically assesses your Fran. And it assesses, as I said, the power, the average power, or also the power per block, per 2159, whatever. But, and that's very important, it also measures your pacing. So how long you took for the first rep, let's say 1 second, and how long you took for the 45th rep, maybe 1.5 seconds. So maybe you start taking more time per rep, and also your resting time. Very important in CrossFit, obviously, all automatically. So then you can play around with pacing, for example, for open workouts or for other workouts that you want to do. So we are working with elite athletes that are using this exactly for, okay, if I do 100 toes to bar, I cannot do it unbroken. How do I break them up most efficiently? Right. So pure pacing doesn't even matter about power. It's pure pacing, and that's how it works.
That's pretty. Is it already in the market or still in the testing? Like,
so there's a beta testers now. So you're calling at the right time, because there's beta testers now for only the people who are on the emailing list, and there are only 5 to 6 workouts, so pre-programmed workouts. But this will come onto the market within 2 weeks. And that is then available again as a beta tester. So you will be providing also some feedback. And it will be mostly, as I said, 5 to 6 workouts that you test, see how it works. And then the goal is not only, so it's a collaboration between WOD Motions, that's the company, and WOD Science, meaning that we will provide, for example, as a challenge, a workout, and then you do the workout, there's a leaderboard and so on. And then later, it will be in later settings, I'm talking about 6 months out, every workout that you can imagine that has the functional movements, you can just start and do the workout, and it will give you your report. Okay, so but that is not yet, because that is technically very, very hard. Obviously, CrossFit is not an easy sport, but we have already quite some different workouts, and I think it's super useful and a cool project to be a part of.
I think this, as it sounds insane, like in a positive way.
It is insane
because think about it. Even like the moment you start bringing this thing to the market, and even it's a beta test, it's like the more people that use it, the more data you have, the better you can make it by itself. And it kind of goes in an upward spiral. You know, it's just
it's all about Yeah. So now we are also asking for grants, for example, to be able to validate what I said, like the physiology, the lactate, the heart rate, towards functional tests, where we can use functional tests to see how fit someone is. Because 3 years ago, I had a collaboration with the University of Basel, and we did a typical physiological profiling of a CrossFit athlete. So we're having 60 high top-end CrossFit athletes, games athletes, semi-finalists, and well-placed open workouts, open finalists. And we let them do a VO2 max test on the bike. We let them do strength tests in the lab, right? And we found very mediocre results. Like their VO2 max was not high, their strength was high, but okay. But we didn't test like CrossFit specific movements. And I was always thinking, these guys, they just do stuff that they're not used to, like biking until exhaustion. A CrossFitter doesn't do that much, certainly 3 years ago, right? So I think using these tests and also those devices to understand power, that's way better. Because, for example, we did such tests already in elite CrossFit athletes, and there it's insane how far they get and how good they are using thrusters, burpees, and functional movements. Okay. And then they likely will get very, very high oxygen uptakes and so on. So that is that is something that initiated this project. Like the traditional sciences are not made for CrossFit or functional movements. They're made for cycling, football, strength sports. CrossFit is a completely different beast, and these functional movements, no one really did them as a sport, so we don't know much about them.
That's pretty cool. It's like if you sit on a bike or C2 bike, whatever, and you just watch the monitor. It's kind of like that's the thing. You just put it on your body, and your phone shows you the data that usually your C2 bike monitor shows you afterwards. This is the many watts and so on. That's pretty cool, man. Well, I wish you all the best with that, because I think, especially like on a high level athlete, because those are the people that are looking for that 1% change.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
This is a 1%er.
Yeah, and I think that can be really valuable.
Yeah. And even for people who like are RX athletes and want to learn how to pace, for example, like it's incredible. Like if you do a 15-minute AMRAP, right, with medium weight, like not body weight, but something like 95 pounds, something decently, but how long you are resting in such a 15 minutes workout. If you are moving more than 50%, you're doing a good job. Moving, actual moving.
Yeah.
So that is also why CrossFit is such an intermittent glycolytic sport, because you are doing something like a couple reps. Even when it's a continuous workout, you put it down, you rest 10 seconds, and you go again. So this interval training, basically. That's a major difference with high rocks, for example, where the movements are much lighter and you're constantly moving. That's actually like if there's one big difference, that's it. CrossFit, you cannot always move, even at the highest level. You will always rest a lot, and that affects your physiology and your biomechanics also a lot. You see? So that's something to think about.
Does it also track breathing patterns? Because I think this is a very how do you say in English? Like a lot of people do not focus on breathing, but I think it's like a very important thing. Does it do that in a way?
No, but you can. There's now a strap. It's called, I think, Time. THYME. I think there's already collaborations with those straps with cycling teams that can assess your expansion of the chest and therefore your breathing frequency. It's not evolved to that, but that could be implemented for sure.
Okay, it just came to my mind because I think that's also
of course. Cool. Good one.
Okay, that's pretty dope. Let's maybe have a little bit of a hard cut on this time, because I saw something on your page on the WOD Science page that I found interesting, and I think a lot of people are actually dealing with that. Especially, I also think like high level athletes. I think you heard it from. I don't want to call it all the name, but one of the lady athletes, I think 1 year ago, said like she had some issues with mental illness and stuff like that. And you also had a post about depression, and I thought, because I have a past with depression, like it's gone, I'm super fine. But I found this post really interesting, and you wrote about that. And can you give us a little bit of insight on how beneficial, actually, from your experience and expertise that you have, how beneficial is it actually? Like, not like you're a psychologist, but like, what did the science say behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot comment too deeply on this, but we were looking. I mean, exercise is like the greatest pill ever, right? Like it's something that I know already very, very long time with some of the studies I read when I was doing my master's, and I was always thinking like, why are governments and why are people not just focusing way more on exercise, man? Like all this bullshit around certain stuff. I'm like, man, just make sure you are physically active every day and whatever sport, it doesn't matter. And then I was thinking, okay, so is there direct evidence of like preventive effects on depression? And so there were some good studies, and those studies are overview studies. So they look at 5, 6, 10 studies that have been literally looking at, okay, you follow up people, whatever, 10,000 people, 5,000 of those do enough exercise and 5,000 don't, all right? And then you see which ones develop cardiovascular disease and other diseases, but also mental problems such as anxiety and depression. And they saw always, like very consistently, that the exercisers had less symptoms of depression. Is this a causal effect? Not really, right? It's hard to do. Like you cannot. That's maybe a problem with some of those studies. The causal effect is always very hard to pinpoint, because these are de facto, we call this observational studies. You observe a certain cohort of people and you see what they develop. And that's, by the way, why there's so much confusion about nutrition, because many of those studies are also observational. It's not that easy to have a big group of people all of a sudden start healthy for 2 years. It's not fundable. It's not that easy to do those studies. So what they do, they observe people. Oh, they eat a Mediterranean diet and they live longer, so it must be the Mediterranean diet. You see, so it
correlates,
yeah. I mean,
more than
it correlates. Yeah. But in this case, yeah, I mean, the data is very strong related to these observational studies that exercise might have an effect, because there's also some mouse studies, and that's my interest more, some mechanistic studies. I mean, it has been 4 years ago since I read those studies, but these were published in very top tier journals, that there are some hormones and exerkines. We call this exer is from exercise, and kines is, let's say, small molecules that get expressed by the muscle that have a direct effect on brain and could, for example, lead to lower symptoms of depression, because these things you can do in mice, right? You can make them depressed and then, for example, let them exercise and so on and manipulate their brains. Very cool research if you're interested in this. So there are some mechanistic explanations. I'm not the expert here to fully explain these, but like you're always one workout away from a good mood. That's clearly a hormonal effect. All right. Like, yeah, that so yeah. I believe, personal belief is that there is some cause and effect, so actual causation because of the mechanistic effects. And
you yourself,
I mean,
you didn't really go into that topic and do your own tests and studies and kind of like
no,
that.
this I didn't do. I didn't do. I'm really a muscle biologist, and I'm looking at the physiology. No, but there is certainly good research, and yeah, I highly encourage, if you're interested in this and having some bad thoughts, certainly looking into those studies, because they're strong. They're very strong.
Yeah, I think like what you just said is really cool, actually. But like building a bridge to another topic here. So anxiety, depression, mental illness and stuff like that. And on the other side, we have, for example, burning out from training, for example. I saw a post on your page and I think you did some testing on that. It said the cost of training too hard. Yep. So there's a fine line between having peak recovery and limited recovery. Yep. What was your take on that, and how far did you go into testing how it affects actually training?
Yeah, so this we didn't test ourselves, like as I said, like with the hybrid and so on, but certainly very relevant to the CrossFit world, right? And also Hyrox world, in my opinion. So why do I mean, I mentioned this a lot in my own videos as well. Like this exercise intensity is something very interesting, because if you look at the data, and again, I draw back to what we know, and what we know is from the endurance world, we know a lot of good scientific findings and also applied science. And what we know from the 90s to the 2000s, people looked at how elite athletes and well-trained athletes, how do they train? Like, what is their intensity distribution? And they do a ton load of zone 2, right? Like massive volumes of low intensity work. And they run marathons at 210, 250, all right? So insanely fast, but they do massive. And that's interesting because if you then again look at the CrossFit athletes, and even now Hyrox athletes, they don't do 80% of their training in low intensity. Like maybe they do vice versa, right? 20% or even 10% low intensity. I don't know exactly there. But the whole idea about CrossFit is you go super hard, you adapt, you rest, and you go back again, all right? And I think, again, this depends on your level. If you are a newbie and you have to get accustomed to the workouts, I do think that just going into the gym 3 to 4 times a week and go super hard is probably the best bang for your buck if you look at performance. But once you are getting into some sort of a plateau or you have been training for a long time, I do think you need some more aerobic adaptations. And aerobic adaptations mean you increase your ability to use and consume oxygen for energy. That's basically it. So this means you build more mitochondria, you build more little vessels around your fibers, and that you will likely do mostly by doing more training volume, all right? Not necessarily low intensity volume, training volume, like more training, more erg work, more whatever. And you can only do that practically, if you think twice about it, by doing some low intensity work, because you cannot always go hard on the bike and you just can't. Like if you want to train 20 hours a week, like actual moving time, please don't go 20 hours of CrossFit Metcons. You will be burned out in 2 weeks, all right? But if you do 5 hours of CrossFit Metcons or 6 hours and 10 hours of, I'm talking about cardiovascular, and 10 hours of zone 2, that you can sustain. Like if you have the time, you see. So it really depends on the athlete, and we also, again, in our training plans, we do incorporate 1, sometimes 2 days of low intensity work using sometimes functional movements. So it's a practical effect of how can you handle a large amount of training volume if you want to get to the next level. And the only way of doing that is incorporating some low intensity work. And that's the simple explanation, so to speak, because relate to that post, what you just said. This may be a bit more in detail, but as I said, like CrossFit is a very glycolytic sport. What I mean is you go super hard, high intense movements, and then you rest for whatever X amount of time always, and then you go again. And this high power production in a short period of time demands certain energy systems, mostly creatine phosphate, as well as glycolysis, like burning down sugars. All right, and certainly if you, for example, want to do weightlifting, like 1 RM snatch, the predominant energy that is converted is coming from this creatine phosphate system, and the recovery of that is super important. So you deplete your creatine phosphate systems stores in a split second. It goes from 100% to whatever 40%, and then it needs a relatively long period of time to recover. And you probably have done that. If you do 5x5 back squats, you cannot go again the first minute. You need to rest 2 minutes, maybe sometimes 3 minutes. That's this creatine phosphate that kind of normalizes. And this coming back, this normalization depends on how much oxygen can be delivered to the muscle. Okay, that's an important part here. So if you have well-established aerobic capacity, you likely are able to repeat your sprints or repeat your high-intensity work faster. And that's key in CrossFit. You see? So it's not only about who's the strongest. It's also who can repeat his 70%, 80% of 1 hour, like the quickest. And yeah, that is basically related to your aerobic capacity as well. And that's, for example, I did once a workout together with Jelle Hoste. He's a Belgian athlete, and we did Macho Man. It's a funny anecdote. Macho Man, it's now I have to say it right, like I think 3 power cleans, 2 front squats, and a jerk, or something around that, like weightlifting, all right? And he did it with 90 kilos, and I did it with 60 kilos. And you do it every minute on the minute, and you just do one complex, and then you rest. And that's a very beautiful workout to see, where he depleted his oxygen, like his muscle oxygen, to a certain extent, but always when he went back, like when he started again his round, he was fully recovered. And for me, this was the same the first 5 rounds with 60 kilos, so a lot less. And then I started to break down. So I couldn't recover my creatine phosphate stores. I couldn't recover my oxygen stores, let's say. And I started to break down, and I had to stop after 15 minutes, and he could just keep going. Like no problem. And that is because he's just better equipped in that. And maybe our 1RMs are probably not that far off, like back squat, for example, like whatever, 20 kilos. But when he does that workout, it destroys me. So something to think about. And it's a bit of the nitty gritty, but certainly important.
So doing more to draw the chain and to kind of like summarize what you just said in my own words, like more mitochondria helps. More mitochondria comes with more volume. If you do more volume, it's not just that you're better sitting on a bike for an hour, it's also improving your 5x5 back squat or your recovery on how fast your creatine, I'm not sure if I can...
creatine phosphate.
Creatine phosphate can get back into the muscle to support another round of exercise, whatever it is.
Yeah, resynthesized. Resynthesized in the muscle, exactly, because you need oxygen for that, exactly. And so maybe what some people confuse is that the oxygen or the aerobic activity is always to be on an erg. And that's not true. I think that's really a misconception, meaning that yes, you can do your zone 2 or whatever zone you want to bike in. You can do it on the ergs, yes, but you can also do it doing burpees or EMOMs. But those EMOMs have to be low intensity and cyclical. And that is what people, usually they go super hard in EMOMs. I'm always thinking like, guys, think about your intensity. Maybe try to add more volume into your training and build aerobic capacity where you do, instead of 20 or let's say 15 burpees per minute, do maybe 11 and do 16 wall balls instead of 19. You see, so you can keep going. You can keep your intensity in check. I think it's a very important concept for more trained and better developed athletes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I saw something. First of all, that was super interesting. I think a lot of people just try to get better by putting in more intensity, and I don't think that's always the right thing to do, right? And this kind of like proves what you just said. So there are 2 ways of like when we're talking about mitochondria. One thing is having more of them, and one thing is also having better functioning mitochondria. Is it a way to say it? The first way we just talked about, like, but how do you make them more efficient or more effective?
Intensity.
Simple.
Intensity. Yeah, it's pretty simple. So there's actually some good data on this. So a lot of the confusion, I once made a post about that. Maybe it's one of the most important posts I've ever made related to this content, and everyone forgets this. So there was an overview study that initiates all of the zone 2 hype, the Huberman and all the big guys talk about this. And what they found, and that's very important to think about, is that training, they call this, right? Like the training load, how they define it, I will get to that in a second, is linearly related. Training volume is linearly related to more mitochondria, literal mitochondria in the muscle. Like they measure this with the microscope, okay? Training volume. And then people think, okay, the more volume, more zone 2, and therefore I get more mitochondria. But that, if you look in the details of the paper, how did they define training volume? They actually phrased it, or they semantically worded it wrong. It's not volume, what they said. They said intensity times training hours. That's what they call volume, but it's not volume. Volume is training hours, duration. That's volume. Intensity is intensity. So if you do intensity times training volume, if you multiply those, you get load, training load. If you do Fran, right, it's extreme high intensity, but very short. You can still be broken for 2 days. Okay. Yeah. If you do a zone 2 session for 3 hours and you can step on a bike the next day, easy, no problem. You see, so the load on your body is higher with Fran than with the zone 2 session, even though the zone 2 session is way longer. And they made, in my opinion, a crucial mistake, actually a semantic mistake, by calling this training volume. So everyone thinks, okay, that's super important. So we need to do a lot of volume, but it's load. Okay, so that's what I said. The more load the body can handle, likely, even independent of intensity, will boost your, let's say, like mitochondria. Talk about purely mitochondria here. So that's one. That's important. So if you can, that's the important part. I talked a lot with a good friend of mine, Lucas Esslinger. He's an OG in the CrossFit world. Maybe you know him.
I know.
And he did almost never low intensity work. All right, he was really from the old school, and he did hard. He also was a student, so he didn't train 20 hours at all per week. He did way less, but high intensity. Okay, and he was also very strong. But because his body could cope with that genetically, right? I couldn't do it. I would be broken, but he can do it. He can actually build quite a lot of volume in his training if you would measure his training time. So that's why also
like high intensity volume you're talking about.
Yeah, but it's still volume, right?
Yeah.
And he won the marathon row in 2017 or 19. I think 17 marathon row. That's pure aerobic capacity. He won that.
That's
all right?
insane.
So, and he never. I mean, he probably trained this a little bit, but he never did like hours on the rower, right? So that is something to think about, that some people just accept high intensity and they will also get better. And that's also how the games athletes work. They do a lot of high intensity and they get better, clearly. So
does that mean that high intensity does not only make mitochondria more efficient, but it also produces more mitochondria, but maybe not as much as like zone 2 volume training, kind of like?
I mean, equated, if you would, let's say, right, equated for duration, I think they can generate more, high intensity can generate more mitochondria if you would be able to do of actual moving time 2 hours.
Yeah, okay.
But that's impossible. No one does this, right? So that's why all the Christian Blumenfeld, like the top triathletes, they train 40 hours per week, but you cannot train high intensity 4 hours per week, pure practically. Like, it's just, you cannot do it. So that's why they do it.
What do you think would be, if you could, kind of like, what would be better or more beneficial, like doing high intensity 1 hour or like zone 2 or 40 hours?
I would potentially even say high intensity if you can do it. Yeah.
Okay.
But there is going to be a cap in how much you can train, how many hours, and recover. So I think it's a fun philosophical question, but practically it's irrelevant because no one can do it.
Okay.
But I mean, on the other hand, if you take it to the other hand, if you have an athlete or a person who can only train 3 times per week, as we said, like many people probably even also listening, like me, for example, I can also train maybe 4 times, 3 times per week. Maybe then it's better to go high intensity because I can recover from that. Yeah. And I will have the best health benefits, likely. You see? So it's always nuance.
Okay, it's a trade-off. What is your body capable of? How many intensity sessions can you have without breaking down? By the way, I just saw I think it was your Instagram story. I took a screenshot. I think you're currently working on a video, and it said like how CrossFit broke the rep range hypertrophy model. Is that something you're working on right now, or
it should be published now?
Is it already out?
It should be published. It should be published at 3:45, and it's 4:25.
Ah, okay. So because I just saw it on the way here because I was coaching.
Yes, it's on. I see at least on my
Because it actually looks pretty interesting. Like what
come on! I make videos. Of course, it's interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of videos out there that suck a lot. Yeah, they're pretty bad. No,
I'm joking.
I really like your content. So can you give us? Or no, people have to watch it. But like in 1 or 2 sentences, like what is the essence of that?
Yeah. So rep ranges 1 to 5 is strength, right? That's what people told you.
The picture.
Yes. So whatever, 8 to 12, that's hypertrophy, and the rest is cardio. For hypertrophy, this is not correct.
Hypertrophy means, for someone who doesn't know,
getting bigger muscles,
bigger,
like
not
what
stronger.
all the guys want. Not necessarily stronger. Good point. Not necessarily strong. So bigger muscles. They have been doing, and I cite some studies in that video where they did 80% 1RM, so heavy loads and a couple reps, I don't know, 3 to 4 reps, or 35 or 30% of 1RM, so very, very light loads and 20, 30 reps. And then they measured the amount of muscle someone can accrete. And they saw that the ones who did both groups improved their muscle mass to the same extent. A very recent study from 2025 December. So yeah, that's basically what I try to explain, and I obviously give it a little wink with CrossFit, because what I find is that, or just empirically, is that CrossFitters are moving in very wide range of rep ranges. Sometimes they do 1RM, but if you do Fran, you do 45 reps of each movement, you see.
Yeah.
So it's and also if you do Murph, you do 150 reps. Yeah, exactly, 300. So and they get very muscular. Certainly the elites who can do a lot of training volume, and yeah, that's kind of the idea of the video. Like, how did CrossFit kind of break my mind about this whole rep range paradigm, which is basically incorrect.
That's pretty cool. And besides doing all of that, as far as I understood, you also provide your own programming. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. So we do these studies that I explained, the hybrid studies, to make better programs. So we have an idea and we test it. We say, hey, is hybrid training better? Or is it better just do CrossFit affiliate programming? Same with Hyrox. We just finished the Hyrox training program, and we said, man, Hyrox, it's a running sport, like whatever, right? But let's say you have an affiliate. You want to open an affiliate. You told me. Maybe I cannot announce it on the podcast.
No, they know. Everyone knows. Like,
okay, good. And you have an affiliate, and you want to get people in. Let's say for Hyrox, I'm just hypothetically saying something. Okay. How are we going to do that? Like, you cannot just tell them to run 5 times a week and never come to your affiliate, right? Like, I mean, that's not a good idea. You want to give them good training in your affiliate that potentially doesn't involve too much running and still improve Hyrox. And that's basically what we tested. One group did predominantly running, another group did predominantly affiliate, kind of CrossFit style training, not really, like more Hyrox style. And then we want to know which one improves the best in Hyrox specific tests. And there we base our programming on, like, okay, that works well, so we actually try to implement that. Next study in next week I will announce will be a master's project. Like, how can you improve your fitness the best as a master? All right. Do you have to train a lot but short time window, like 6 times but 40 minutes to improve recovery, or do you train 3 times 90 minutes with longer recovery? So that's why we provide, and obviously to keep the page going and to keep us financially stable, and also to fund some of those projects, we implement these training plans. So I think it's fun for everyone.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Are you also working with athletes that are using your program and do tests with them?
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep myself away a little bit from the top elite fields, because it will take too much of my time. If you want to be a coach of an elite games athlete, it's a 40-hour work week, honestly. And I want to create content and think about fun scientific stuff. What I do, and this will also be documented, I work together with Adidas, where we implement testing for their athletes, and we have a full week of testing. So that, yes, as an advisor, but not myself. No.
Okay,
that's,
okay. So it's not
the games project will be one part, as we mentioned.
Oh, okay. Wow, pretty cool, man. That's a lot of stuff going on your plate, dude. That's pretty cool. Like,
I told you I was quite finicky, that I couldn't stand still.
Yeah, so, I get the vibe. You're kind of like you're sitting on, like, you know those, I think they sold it in the 90s, like this place where you stand on and it kind of vibrates the whole time, and you kind of like, that's you know those. I don't know. At one point, there was the thing in the lazy
BS.
Yeah. Dude. Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just do CrossFit, man. God damn it.
Yeah. Fucking hell. It's really like that. It's that simple. Just go find a CrossFit box and do CrossFit 3 to 4 times a week, and you're good.
I agree. I agree fully.
Maybe one last question, and then we can finish the podcast. So what do you think? I'm not sure which question I want to choose. Okay, but I take this one. In which area of human physiology are we still, scientifically speaking, most in the dark? Maybe with a little focus on the hybrid CrossFit scene. What would you say?
Yeah, but I have to repeat myself here. It's
Okay.
everything. Yeah, unfortunately, it's. I mean, look, the science in functional fitness is very low quality and not that much in quantity, because it's not an Olympic sport. Governments don't care. It's a private company, whatever. But on the flip side, it is done by a lot of people. Like a lot of people do CrossFit. A lot of people certainly do high rocks. If you look at it for participation in sports, right? But there's not that much funding. So if you go to government or whatever funding agency said as a researcher or a professor, hey, I want to do a big training study in CrossFit athletes, you likely won't get much money. And that's important, to get money to do those studies, all right? So related to functional fitness, I think we're grasping in the dark in all areas: physiology, psychology, muscle accretion, and so on and so forth. So it's fun for me. I can think about these things and try to do my own research a little bit, at least also with university. But it's not that easy to take muscle biopsies and so on, because there's not that much funding. So I think the mechanical power, as I explained, like how to transfer mechanical power, like work and power, actual power, towards functional movements, and how to integrate that to physiology, that's a completely black box. And that's something I'm willing to spend some time on to try to open, at least. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. It's kind of like there are a lot of people doing this sport, but it's also like the high-level athletes, only the top X% can live by what they do, kind of like. Yeah. And it's probably even worse for people like you, who, imagine you wouldn't have like your own programming and stuff like that. It's like, how are you able to get money from that sport, kind of like, and from the science behind that sport? You would always have to kind of like find someone, right, to support and stuff. It's not like football, for example. Probably football is like there's science backed also, I would guess.
Yeah, certainly. And because there's a direct link to, for example, GPS signals and how fast an athlete runs and how well the team will do and how much money they will get, right?
Yeah.
So, but also one of the things with WOD science is, and I'm coming from a scientific background, I really don't want to be influenced by other parties. So I don't take any sponsors. I don't take like whatever. I'm not sponsored by anyone. It's a very rational take that I did with my co-founder, because I want to speak freely about everything, whatever I want. All right. And that is, I think, very important, and sometimes forgotten now in the world of social media, that a lot of people are influenced by whatever. It's fine. I understand them. But the fact that we can bring some services, like a course I'm building, the different plans I'm making, and be self-sustainable, that is cool for me. Like that's what I want to keep as long as possible. Obviously, if there's some cool brands potentially could collaborate with, but I don't want to. Yeah, that's something that people who follow the page for a long time, I've been citing this a lot, and that's, I think, very important in the time of AI and of fake citations and of everything, that the authenticity of the content stays relevant, and that's, I hope we can try to keep doing, and yeah, it's time consuming but very fun, and yeah, I think that's important to understand.
I think that's also a how do you say, a creed that as a scientist you have to have. How can you name yourself a scientist if you are like, if you say what someone else pays you to say, you know what I mean? It kind of like contradicts of what I think of being a scientist.
It definitely contradicts.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's a very hard thing, because in science, certainly in Europe, there's also in the States, there's less and less money. Like it's all about like funding, right? Like, and I always tell my boss, because I'm still 50% employed by the university, like we should try to at least collaborate more with private companies. I mean, it's pretty of a, like kind of a hot take, but it's not because, I mean, what science, it's something else than an actual like someone who does the science. Like what science, I have to be, I think, very independent. And if a supplement company would pay me, I cannot say anything wrong about a supplement, right? Because they sell it. That's already kind of hard. But if you want to do a big study and you want to involve some private company and understand their wearable or so on, it might be okay. Like it's not the end of the world, and you can still be unbiased. All right, and you can do better research because there's just more money from the private point. So I don't know. It's a very hard. I would say it's a very hard history, and it's not that easy to solve. But if you do, like, maybe to end is, if you have to do shitty studies that only are master projects or some kind of bachelor project because there's no money, it's maybe good to try to also work together with companies to do better studies, like better funded studies. Yeah. So it's a weighing balance. I don't know.
True. Well, I mean, in the end, as a scientist, you're a truth seeker, right? Not a. I mean, and you have you have to dance. It's a fine. It's razor sharp. Like you have to find the balance between, do you want to sell your soul, or do you want to be like what you like, to be? And
I know, but if you cannot be a truth seeker if there's no funding, and certainly in functional fitness, it's just like, yes, we are super interested about this, and hopefully your listeners as well, but it's still quite a niche thing, and certainly governmental organizations, I just had a call with someone from the granting agency. They have zero clue what it is, so they don't know what a burpee is. Like, how can they ever provide you the money? Like, really? And I tell them, yeah, so it's not that straightforward. We really live in the bubble. Don't forget.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. Well, I was talking to different banks because I have to finance my gym, right? And talking to them, they go, like, what is this? What is the Hyrox? CrossFit? Like, you feel like you talk to mushrooms. Like,
yes,
bro. I feel that this is a big pain that scientists have. Like, you have to have money to talk to a lot of people, to make a lot of studies that kind of like bring something new out of that. And got it.
So maybe just one thing to people know,
Sure.
like one of the cool things that is developing with Hyrox. I mean, you can have all the hate and all the whatever. I'm not involved.
It's the wrong podcast. Just CrossFitters. You're not just kidding.
One of the things that they do well, like they invited me, for example, for their Sports Science Council. So what did they do? They have 5 scientists like me that are involved in functional fitness, and they have like a council that looks over some of the like applications from other scientists, from other PIs, to do research related to Hyrox. So they really want to push forward the whole scientific idea about Hyrox physiology, but also whatever biomechanics. And they want to push it forward because also they're Olympic bid, and I think it's pretty cool. Like, honestly, like when they talked about this to me, I said, this is kind of what I do the whole time, my whole life with WOD science, and you guys are finally understanding it. And they obviously have, certainly some money to do good research. So maybe if you're a scientist or you're doing your master thesis, that's something to think about, to actually ask, hey, I want to do some functional fitness specific research. I mean, honestly, talk to Hyrox. They are definitely interested in this stuff.
Dude, that's pretty cool. I didn't know
that
they have this. Like,
of course. I mean, they have to, because they have to be more professional to be Olympic sport, right? Yeah. So, and that one of the things is having scientific contribution to the sport, which makes complete sense. And hopefully we can have a ground up idea, meaning that the athletes, the coaches, some of the professors, but certainly also the athletes and the coaches come up with ideas. Hey, I want to know this. Can you research this and do a good training study? And that's where Hyrox comes in as a middleman and try to navigate that. And basically that's the whole idea about WOD science, literally the whole idea. So I think they're doing a good job, and I'm trying to push this really hard, and I'm sure it will work out.
That's so cool. I didn't know that they have it, and like I especially I think Hyrox is doing a lot of good things. First of all, from a standpoint of how they market, how they like have their whole company doing in total, and now hearing this, and also like seeing their goal going to Olympia, because I had the president of the German
how do you say it? Functional Fitness
Federation.
Yep. What's his name? I had him in a seminar, I think.
Dude.
Yeah, all good, all good.
I hope he's not listening.
It's okay, man. We'll edit him in.
It will come in a second. So and he was here, and I was also talking about like, okay, how do you bring functional fitness? Which I mean, they do CrossFit, but they call it functional fitness, right?
Yeah.
So how did they bring it? It's like it's a way, it's insane, and they don't have money and everything. But like, here comes Hyrox, a brand like CrossFit that wants itself. Imagine CrossFit came around and said like, hey, listen, we have a new plan. We want to bring CrossFit to Olympia. Like how to the Olympics. How do you do that? They would do the same thing like Hyrox does. They would ask you, hey, Gommaar, can we work together? You know, but they're not doing it. I don't know why actually, but I think not even just scientists doing their bachelor thesis can profit from Hyrox and something like that, but also CrossFit itself. I think they can learn a lot from each other, dude. I have a dream that in this year's CrossFit Games, they have one workout, which is called Hyrox, and they simply do a Hyrox. And they work together. Imagine as a fucking CrossFitter, how awesome would that be? And imagine as a Hyroxer, how fucking awesome would that be if that happened? But yeah.
It would break the internet, that's for sure.
Dude, this is the best marketing idea I think I ever had. But I have also no idea about marketing, so it might be bad. All right.
Yeah, interesting. They won't do it. They won't do it.
I think maybe that
they won't do it.
But why? Is it an ego thing? I mean, it's like it would be so fucking cool seeing elite CrossFitters smashing PRs on a Hyrox. That would be too bad.
Yeah, won't happen.
Yeah. So Dave Castro, if you see this, please talk to the guys from Hyrox. They're also Germans, by the way.
I can bring him in contact. They will be very open.
I'm not sure if he is, but let's see. Okay. Thanks a lot for this piece of information that you just added to the podcast. I think that gave a lot of value. And Gommaar, thanks a lot. I've learned a lot in here, and I hope a lot of the listeners as well. I think for the first English-speaking podcast episode that I have, I think it's a good one. And yeah, is there one last thing you want to give the audience before we close up?
Yeah, exercise is the most important thing for your health, man. I'm telling you, it's derived from exercise. You're only one workout away from a good mood. It's so true. And make sure you keep active through your whole life. It's not only about performance, but also about health, family, and yeah, just getting better at life. And certainly CrossFit community, Hyrox, I don't care, boot camps, yoga, it all helps. So keep going, and even when it's bad weather, when you're in a bad mood in January, just go. It's important. Your body loves exercise.
I think that sums it up very well, and I think everyone who does sports would agree immediately. Okay, thank you very much, Gommaar. I wish you now a nice weekend, and hopefully here, and maybe see you somewhere, I don't know, around, and have a great one.
Yeah, same. Thank you. Bye.